In the era of seemingly endless movie reimaginings, where Hollywood film studios callously reboot classic titles and quote update them for modern audiences, the Walt Disney Company is largely seen as one of the most notorious, as evidenced by the studio's live-action takes of their animated classics such as Mulan, The Lion King, The Little Mermaid, and the recent box office disaster, Disney's Snow White. Unfortunately, it appears that the Mouse House is sadly at it again. Let's talk about the upcoming reboot to Malcolm in the Middle, the reimagining of 2003's Holes, and whatever development dystopia that Marvel Studios' Blade reimagining ice skated uphill into, here on That Park Place.
There's a rumor going around that Disney is trying to quiet the noise. I know we've kind of talked about this at the start of a story before, but I'm looking at what Disney's up to right now, and I think that this company may not be on the right track. I'm getting that idea. First of all, we've got a great story by Raven Redgrave out of That Park Place. Delroy Lindo breaks silence on Marvel's troubled Blade reboot. It just went off the rails, and you guys should read this. Raven Redgrave here put it together.
Fantastic writer.
Yes. Marvel's continuously delayed Blade reboot has been stuck in development limbo for years, and now one of its former stars is shedding light on why. Actor Delroy Lindo, which is a mouthful of a name, who joined the project back in 2021, recently spoke out about his experience and the behind-the-scenes troubles that ran deeper than scheduling or script rewrites. Lindo, in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, described the project as one that just went off the rails. He explained that early conversations with Marvel gave him the impression the studio was eager for his creative input, especially on the character he was set to play, someone Lindo described as Marcus Garvey-esque. I'm not saying it would have been an out-and-out Garveyite, not that, but in terms of how this man's philosophy, his ethos, and what was driving him. Lindo told Entertainment Weekly. He was a character who had, very similar to Sinners, created a community, a black community. He was a character who was the head of his community.
I wonder if this movie was going to lean into race stuff.
I wonder. So going over here to Deadline. That's a similar headline, but there's something that troubles me a little bit here. When Marvel came to me, they seemed to be really interested in my input, the Da5 Blood star said. And in the various conversations I had with producers, the writer, the director at the time, it was all leading into being very inclusive.
Uh-huh.
Oh, there we go. Bom, 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 to use the my version of the Price is Right horns there. I just feel like Disney does not understand what's great about Blade. I think they wanted a MCU movie, and they were like, well, we'll stick Blade into an MCU movie. And what is an MCU movie? Well, it represents today, apparently. And who's interested in today? I don't know. Trish, just going to go out on a limb here. Are you familiar with the original Blade?
Slightly. It's not detailed, but I know generally about it. So
that might actually work better for this then. What are your outside impressions of what that film is supposed to be?
That it's this kind of tough, cool vampire hunter, and it's a very dark. I mean, it doesn't seem MCU. When you were saying the sticking in MCU never struck me as that, and I didn't think it was particularly high on the ha-has, that it was leaning into funny or anything like that.
Yeah, anything funny in that movie is based around how tough Blade is. So would inclusive be of the words that you would describe in the cultural osmosis here on your impression of Blade, not having watched it?
I never really thought about it either way, to be honest with you. Blade was just Blade, so it was just like...
Well, Blade came out in 1998, a time in which no one cared about race.
Yeah.
Blade was black and nobody ever noticed. He was just a cool character. That was what we focused on. We didn't focus on the inclusion. We didn't focus on the race. We didn't focus on racism. We just focused on the fact that it was a cool, tough guy killing vampires.
Yeah, and well, I mean, that was back when if there was a comic book involved, it was required viewing. If there was a comic book for it, everyone went to go see it because we were grateful for any comic book movies.
Yeah.
It's a little bit harder on the language than I would probably watch now, just right off the bat. But essentially, Blade is a blaxploit. You can see the through line in the way that they made the film, that it's kind of like the old blaxploitation films. It's almost like they said, you know what if Shaft was a vampire hunter, and then you have Wesley Snipes as Blade.
No,
And
gave him
by
a
the way,
katana.
yeah, amazing. The action in those movies was so much fun, mostly because you got Wesley Snipes, and Stephen Dorff is in it as Deacon Frost. I want to say the whitest of white characters that you can get is these partially German vampires going around in heavy sunscreen so they can go around during the daytime. There is a racial thing that you can overlay on top of that film, but white people didn't care.
Nobody
it was
cared.
an amazing film. And
what are
for
you
them to
being
be like,
inclusive about?
Exactly. It became kind of there were elements of race in it, but not in anything explicit in the movie. Like anything that someone wanted to put it on it for race was outside of the film itself. And we were grateful for what we got back in the day.
My first exposure to Blade, I think, was what a lot of 90s kids was. It was because he was in multiple episodes of the 90s Fox Kids Spider-Man cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
And he was awesome. And they expertly got around like all of Fox's censors, with Morbius being like, I hunger for plasma. But he was when I saw this movie, I was like, oh, this is what this character is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I was a fan from then on. It was awesome. And then like you announced Mahershala Ali playing him. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. He was the best part of Luke Cage season 1.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Disney, I don't understand, and I still feel like they're trying to figure out some way to make this into something that talks about the message, for lack of a better way to put it. This does seem like they were trying to make it into the message.
Well, we also heard, Jonas, that one of Mahershala Ali's big sticking points, and he did have veto power on the script, was that the movie was not about Blade. Every script that came back, it was basically being like, we'll introduce Blade, but then we will immediately switch to Blade's daughter, and the movie will be about Blade's daughter. And then it'll be Blade's daughter will be the new Blade going forward. It was a bait and switch. And he was like, we're not doing that. I signed on to be Blade. I'm going to be Blade.
Right. So in that can work. There have been places where that has worked. But if you're going to do something like that, where you're introducing a character, because Wesley Snipes obviously was Blade in the 90s, and maybe the sequels came out in the 2000s. But why are you going through all of the effort to reintroduce Blade if you're going to replace him? Speaking of reboots, and again, this is the through line here that we're looking at. It looks like I'm going to have to do some StreamYard wizardry here. That Malcom in the Middle, which Disney now owns, they're doing a reboot for Disney Plus, and one of the characters is going to be part of the LGBTQ community, specifically on the QTIA plus side of all of this. So the wholesome family comedy over there is getting rebooted in a way that it's now definitely going to have to address some weirdness here. In a comedy that is supposed, and by the way, I don't know if you guys notice this, in comedies, you're supposed to be able to make fun of things. So I don't think they're going to be able to make fun of that one. Also throwing in here, they are doing a Holes reboot, and we now have confirmation that they're straight up replacing the main character of Stanley Yelnats with, I'm going to guess at the last name here, Haley Yelha is probably going to be her name when it comes down to it. Now, this one's a little different. They're going with a white blonde girl for the main character here, but Disney is still doing this weird diversity. We have to switch the genders. We have to switch something about the characters thing. So I don't think Disney is learning its lesson here. Anybody familiar with the original Holes adaptation here?
Oh, yes. It was a favorite book of mine growing up, and very much familiar with the Shia LaBeouf film right there, which was definitely an interesting take on that franchise. I guess IP or whatever you want to call it, at least back then, to change that character in this way. It's a choice. It's a choice, and if I'm not mistaken, Holes actually there was a racial component in there with the backstory of why the kids are digging in the first place. So, it's interesting to say the least.
So they've replaced the guy who runs the camp with Greg Kinnear, but it also seems like they have changed the nature of the camp that they're being sent to, and it's kind of a punishment camp, right? And so by changing it to a girls' camp, they have gender swapped almost the entire young cast when it comes down to it here. So I don't know. I think Disney is still trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're trying to back away from the more controversial stuff here, but they're still like the Malcolm in the Middle thing. I think that's gonna fly over like a lead balloon. I don't think that's gonna go well. And if they do a Blade reboot and it looks like the casting office of a Los Angeles studio, I think that's going to be a problem.
Well, and that's the thing too. You might have Bob Iger or somebody else make proclamations. Oh yes, we want to go ahead and get out of the culture war. We're quieting the noise. We're doing all this stuff, but still, your company is made up of activists employing other activists in the form of creatives in order to bring this to fruition here. So yeah, the company outwardly might want to change course or change direction. But again, they have to square that with the amount of creatives that they have within their organization. And Bob Chapek was attempting to do something about that by having a little bit of a filter that these things had to go through. But, that was the first thing that Bob Iger wrecked when coming in. So how else do you curate that content?
I wonder, like, if there is specifically a mechanism in place at Disney that says, like, okay, well, we've got this show. We're going to reboot it. It has a macho masculine character or attractive female lead. What can we do to quote unquote modernize this for today? And then they strip away like all of that. Like that's all the first to go. Like the show never has a chance because they do this thing where the audience doesn't then identify it with the original thing. Like Malcolm in the Middle having a non-binary character, like that takes me out of the idea of this goofball father and his screw around kids that they're trying to get away with something. That adds an element to it where I go, okay, what are we doing here? Is that character going to have any sense of humor? Because I've never seen a sense of humor attached to anything like that. Like I feel like if something like that appears in a family comedy, that would be the thing that the scene would be about, and you're not going to be allowed to make fun of it. So I don't know. From a comedy standpoint, I don't see how that's going to work. From a Blade standpoint, I don't know how you have a diverse cast in a movie that it should be about a lot of murder.
Right.
Well, Jonas, everybody's trying to ice skate up.
That's true. That does sound like ice skating uphill. Surely that was an ad lib from that was a line that Wesley Snipes improvised himself. Also, he got out there about the fact that they keep failing at making a Blade movie, and he said somebody's always trying to use a snowmobile in LA traffic or something like that. I'm like, what's up with all the winter themed analogies? It's
the first thing that pops into his mind. I had a friend. I had a friend back when I used to do improv stuff, and the first thing that always popped into her mind were trees. And so every improv thing she would do would be about trees. So maybe that's Wesley Snipes with snow.
Yeah, like Michael Scott when he goes to improv class, and every time he ends up having a gun.
Agent Michael Scarn.
Yeah. I got to say, I don't have a lot of hope for whatever Disney is up to over the next little while. As much as they would like to say the creative engine is fixed here. I don't know. Is there anything out there on the horizon for Disney right now? I mean, even Fantastic Four, we saw that. It looks like, well, first of all, it has Pedro Pascal in it, which I can't decide whether or not he's going to be the reason that his universe gets destroyed, or if he's just going to be there sitting there. The smartest man in the world is just this mopey mess over here. Is there anything to look forward to from Disney over the next 6 months to a year?
Well, Lilo and Stitch, that's the thing. That's the kind of the one bright spot. But remember, that was going to be on Disney Plus originally. So by the grace of, I don't know, Walt Disney himself, that's going to be making its way in theaters that people can get excited for. I think the only other thing I see on the horizon is really like Fire and Ash, but that's not until December. So it's going to be pretty bleak for the Walt Disney Company going forward.
But those have blue people in them. That's Avatar, for those of you who are not tracking with the subtitle method here. That is Avatar 3, and not the Avatar with all the Asian people in it. It's the Avatar with the blue people in it. Oh, I don't know.
That's
anything
clarification?
Anything for you, Trish?
No, actually, I forgot about Lilo and Stitch, but it's the one thing that I saw that looked like it was going to be cute and going to be enjoyable, and I think generally everyone was going to probably like it, but outside of that,
And Marvin,
Yes, sir.
you have a focus on this that's different than everybody else's. Is there anything, literally anything, coming out of Disney or Fox? Let's throw that in there. Avengers Doomsday, Avengers Secret Wars, Thunderbolts. Anything striking your fancy here?
I think there is a chance that Thunderbolts will be marginally better than everyone is thinking that it will be, because nobody has any expectations for it. I believe that Lilo and Stitch, I think, has the potential to be very good. Other than that, I mean, look, that Avatar movie, I could not care less.
And I mean, they had the live action films.
Yeah. Looking at all of this, I wonder, like, if Disney, until they get a real change over there, I wonder if this company is just holding on instead of actively destroying themselves, which, looking at what they did with Andor, which we have actively not talked about Andor on this channel. If you want our thoughts, you can go on almost any other channel that we've been on to hear the thoughts on where Tony Gilroy insists Star Wars must go in order for his truth to be out there into the world. You can go check that out elsewhere. I feel like this company is about as close to just being in a holding pattern, hoping that they can scrape up any nostalgia they have that might exist out in the ether. I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope for the Disney company going forward as far as reboots go. There are those who might say, "Oh, you've given up on the Disney company." Well, the current staff maybe.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media account.